Hi, everyone, and welcome to Marketplace Masters, the podcast where we go beyond the surface to uncover the strategies that help Amazon agencies and operators truly move the needle. I'm your host, Paul Sonneveld, coming you today live from the Amazon Unboxed event here in Nashville. Today, we're tackling one of the most critical and often debated topics for agency leaders, right? How to price your services. This is a live session, so if you're joining us in real time on YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook, we'd love to hear from you. Bring your questions, your experiences, and even your frustrations. That's what makes these conversations really valuable. Just pop them in the comment section and we'll tackle them. Now, to help us unpack the complexity of agency pricing, whether it's retainers, revenue share, product-type services, I'm once again joined by Scott Ohsman, the VP of Digital Commerce at Quickfire, a full-service digital agency supporting consumer brands across marketplaces, SEM, paid social, influencer marketing, and creative strategy. Now, many of you will know Scott. He's been in the game for over 30 years, launching more than 200 brands on Amazon. He brings a brand-first mindset shaped by deep retail and e-commerce experience, and he also runs his own sales and marketing agency out of the Pacific Northwest. He hosts multiple podcasts, and fun fact, he is a seasoned sportscaster at a live event MC, including the Seattle Marathon. Scott, you've been on our show before, but it's an absolute pleasure to have you back today.
Always good to be here. Thanks for having me. And hey, it's high school football playoffs. Got a big game Friday night. You're calling.
Maybe we
Great to
should
be back.
answer these questions in your sort of calling voice. That'd be
Yes,
interesting.
yes.
But I imagine we will do the podcast in about 2 minutes. Some people may prefer that, but well, let's go for the long version for now. So, today we're talking about pricing. Super relevant topic, right? Because even here at Unbox today, Amazon making lots of announcements that maybe impact some of this stuff, right? Generative AI and the like. But let's just start from the top. Why is pricing such a difficult topic for agencies, and why does it matter so much?
It's always been so difficult, and it continues to be difficult because they're trying to get the size of clients and what clients are going to be paying for what services. Because really, the pricing comes down to I need to hire external expertise, but the CFOs and C-suites and everybody who looks at the financial says, God, it has to stay below a level where you're like, why can't we just internally hire this self? So we're paying X amount of dollars a month. It's costing us a year. Why don't we just do it ourselves? And that is the constant tension, right? That's the healthy tension between agency and client. And the pricing is critical. And it's amazing how different so many different agencies in the Amazon space, whether you're full digital, it's amazing. The creativity of the pricing and how it adjusts and how it's evolved over the years is amazing. And it fluctuates as far as pricing over the years and over the time and the tech and evolved of what services are critical or not. So it's a massive deal because it's a highly intensive, labor intensive, really smart people and really great tech like Merchant String. So, but it's tough to keep your margins good when you're doing a full service, and that's why pricing is so critical.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And such an important point. I remember thinking about this really long and hard around how do we make sure that our pricing still, makes us the number one financial choice versus the insourcing question. Super important. But let's talk about the different models that are out there. I mean, you've seen all these different models over the years. I mean, what are the main pricing models that you see agencies use today?
I mean, most of it's all over the board, and I keep running into new ones actually, which shout out everybody for coming up with more creative ways to do this. Is the most traditional one is a monthly flat fee, a retainer, a fee that is usually relatively low depending on the size of the business and what have you. And then there's a revenue share. So there's a total operating sales in the vendor space, a lot of times it's off COGS or invoiced. So there's a percentage share of a revenue share plus that. Then there's the ad part of it, which has really evolved and changed. I mean, we didn't have this years and years ago, but the percentage of ad spend, and that has become a critical part for agencies. This is also an agency where they're going to make a lot of margin and maybe, almost maintain margin and blended margin and make up for some losses in the services part of it. So that's one. So fee plus rev share plus ad percentage of spend. I have issues there on all of that. The other one is just more heavily rev share. So it's, hey, I got skin in the game. I'm gonna hire these external people because what do I got to lose, right? It's less expensive than internal. I couldn't do all the stuff they do, and you know what? They're willing to go on the line, so we have skin in the game, and they're gonna put it. So it's a very, very low or no monthly retainer, and it's 100% revenue. The other side is a small, again, if it's ad based, depending on that, is it's again small revenue and a big ad base. The other big thing is different tiers and different variations and creative ways to come up with ad revenue or with revenue shares is when your starting date the agency takes over to the okay, you only get 5% on the increase that the agency has impact on. This is cut up a billion different ways, and the same thing with percentage of spend on ads is they spent this, we're only going to charge them this. Then there's the tiered. Okay, you can if you spend $100,000 to $200,000, we get you this rate, but then it goes to a different one. So there's all kinds of stuff that is happening with that. Those are the main most popular ones.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've started seeing some agencies that have really gone, I guess, fee for service in the sense that either they charge for like their time, like a bit like the traditional accounting firm, or just like for services, like really just like here's a menu of stuff. Okay, you want a PDP done, that's I don't know $1,200. You want this done, that's that. Like, do you see still any of that, or you feel like that's sort of gone out of vogue a bit?
No, that's a great point. I was just trying, the basic models is the kind of the pillars is what I just talked about. What has happened over the years is, oh, I need creative. Okay, these are ad hoc services. If you need an infographic, X amount of dollars. You need creative services on building content, it's X amount of. I need to optimize umpteen different ASINs. There's a price for that. So ad hoc services, because what happens on agencies, right? They're doing all this stuff and it's out of scope and they're not getting paid for it. So everybody's got to do, oh, I want forecasting. I want this. I want this. So they can reduce the monthly and they can basically charge you these ad hoc services. And that's been a huge part of what's happened. Now, I just got to mention at Quickfire, we're small. After coming out of big agencies and everything else like that, again, I'm not saying this is the right way to do it, or wrong way to do it. We just charge a flat monthly fee. We just do the work. And because I don't want to, we're going to get to this because I've already, the highs and lows, the risks and rewards of all these other models I've lived through. So at Quickfire, we basically simplified and said, here's what we do. Here's the price. See you later. We do the work. That's it. Ad hoc, we have ad hoc stuff, but that's it. So it's a much simpler financial. The other biggest thing is, and the reason CFOs don't love variables, Paul. They don't love the percentage of revenue. They really don't like percentage of spend because it's a variable that they can't budget and they can't measure and calculate. That's the other big problem when you're doing big negotiations. CFOs get involved and they're like, hey, I'm in for a rev share because I like that because you have skin in the game. There's some pressure and there's some financial flexibility. But man, I don't like getting a different bill every month.
Yeah, it's hard, particularly with the big businesses. There's a pre-agreed budget that's been signed off. Variances against that have to be explained. All of that, very hard. No, I get it. Just for our audience, I'd love to. Can you give us some when we talk about that first model, right, which is sort of the base plus a rev share? I mean, what are some common pricing levels that are out there? Say, maybe for a mid-tier agency, for a high-end agency. What are the sort of going rates? I appreciate this varies dramatically, but I think people, particularly our non-US viewers, we're really keen to understand. They might get a shock, but they're keen to understand. And what does it look like in North America right now?
Again, disclaimer, like you've already said, right? This is the category, whatever. It's based on, everyone asks, oh, well, how many ASINs and what is it, vendor or is it seller? That's a great question by one of the comments. Is you've got to clarify how they're actually tracking these rev shares. On vendor, it's actually I don't know. I could argue it's harder. I could argue it's simpler, but depends on, they make their money on what they invoice, right? COGS and vendor is the closest thing we have to invoice. So you got to make sure, if you're paying an agency or you're an agency, be very detailed on exactly what the percentage of the rev share is going to be. You can do ordered revenue. Great. If I'm a manufacturer, I don't love that, honestly, because that's not what I have to report internally to my finance team. So what you're talking is can range from $5,000 US a month, and then a rev share anywhere from 2% to 5%, even 8%, depending on the level of the customer. You can get into $7,500 a month. You can get into $10,000 a month, then a lower percentage of rev share if it's a much, much larger. Where that typically happens when you're paying those kind of rates, $10,000 to $15,000 a month on retainer, then the percentage of ad spend actually is a higher variable. That can be from 1.5% to 3% at the high rate. So these are all big parts of it, and there's tiers to that. So it can go from, in the low end, $2,000 a month plus a rev share, or even I've seen $1,200. I mean, right now, a lot of people are outsourcing people all over the world, and so they're getting these, even $500 to $1,200 a month, and they have a bigger, maybe a 10%, even on apparel and accessories, a 15% rev share.
Yeah,
Does that
makes
give you a
sense. And
sense of what it is?
yeah, no, it's really good. I just benchmarking this 10 years ago, we were charging $500 per channel actually, and then a ref share of 8 or 9%, which is quite on the high end. But this was in Australia, like really low market. It was really hard to get to a big number on an invoice and justify it as well. Probably slightly different problems. Right. So talk to me a little bit more about media spend, right? Clearly you're not a fan. I'd love to understand, what do you think, why, and what do you think might be a better model? And then to throw a third question in there, sorry to make it complicated. I appreciate that a lot of agencies are facing really big fees from the platforms they use to manage their ad campaigns. Typically on an ad spend basis as well. Is that included, or is that something that layers on top of that for the client?
This is the challenge. The agencies are doing the best they can, but you name the large ad tech firm, the programmatic ad tech who's actually executing all this in the software and producing the dashboards, they're charging a percentage of ad spend. So they can't get away from it. So the ad agency doesn't make a lot of money. Again, they're typically having to mark that up a little bit because they got a chance, the management fee to it. But really, most agencies, in my experience, and this again, it can change, is really on that monthly retainer. They're trying to make sure their margins are correct for the labor and the head count they have to put against it, the support services they have to put against it. That's where they're really trying to make the margin. The ad spend is there, and it has to do. They're going to mark that up a little bit, but they don't have a choice. They have to pay the percentage of spend to use these tools, and this is where I've been helped a lot of brands out in the last 2-3 years, where we basically put some tiers and some guardrails in. If we spend X amount, okay, here's the percentage. But from an agency standpoint in a brand, I'm like, you know what? I'm not doing the percentage of spend. Let's just set this up right now. We look over the last 12 months, 18 months, or what have you. We look with the brand and say, this is what our spend is going to be. We have some seasonal increases here and there. That's fine. But you know what? You're going to give me a monthly price. I want a monthly price because my CFO needs a monthly budgeted price. Add the tiers in. If we go over that, then again, it goes from 1.5% to 1.75%, for example. That's what a lot of agencies are going to, because the client does not want to deal with the percentage of spend, because it's hard to calculate exactly what that's going to be.
Sorry, no, I completely agree. Yeah, I was on mute. There's a bit of music behind me here.
It's Nashville. Always
yeah,
music.
it is. It's a guitar within 5 meters of any location, which is interesting. It's actually, I'm not joking.
I know. I was on. I told you, Jason Boyce. Again, I'm name dropping here. I was on a call with him this morning, and he was like, "Hold on, I can't hear you," because everywhere he was going was music.
It's. I think it took me about 20 minutes just to find this spot. As I said before, reasonable Wi-Fi and quite enough to do a podcast, or just completely bad planning on my part. But anyway, back to our topic.
Yes.
I completely get your point around, much easier to have a flat fee, right? Easier for everyone, except for the incentivization bit, right? and the partnership. Like how do you, so if we talk about more the benefit of like, it's just a fixed amount and let's take a long-term perspective, playing devil's advocate as a client, how do I continue to incentivize you to continue to drive my sales? Because it sounds like this could just turn into you get paid the same amount whether you do a good or a bad job, right? What signals or incentives can you still put in front of that client to comfort them around that particular topic?
So that's a great point and a very common point, and it depends on the internal org structure and actually how their finances set up and where they see their Amazon business in relation to other things. So, great point is you can say, listen, I'm going to play this flat fee. Excuse me, easy for me to say, flat fee. But if we get the business from here to there, again, this is setting up incentives. If we go here, you guess what? I'm going to give you a raise. Okay. I will take the fee from X to Y if we hit these different marks, or if you can keep my margin. So a lot of other, if you drill down, it's like, one of the most important things is my margin. So I want my unit economics and my total P&L on Amazon. I've got to hit these marks. If you do so, guess what? I'm going to put an extra little kicker there at the end of the year. So there's people have put together bonus programs, tiered programs, again, saying, here's your incentive. I'm paying you X amount a month. If you get it to here, which I think is an opportunity, and you stay within the budget of what it's going to cost to get those sales, and this is promotions, and this is advertising, and this is everything else, then guess what? I'm going to give you a raise. So I like those structures a lot more. And then let's just be honest, okay? A lot of these contractual agreements are for 6 months to a 12-month lock. I'm telling you, I've been through big ones. If somebody really wants to get out and you're not doing a good job and they want to move, I'm telling you, they're getting out. There's some loophole somewhere, somehow they're getting out. That's just been my experience. They're good. They're necessary. I'm not against them. I'm just saying the bottom line is if something is moving or there's things out of control, and that's why I don't like the revenue share, because from the agency standpoint, just way too many risks. Sure, if you get a big hit, terrific. You get a big payday. What happens the next year? If you say, I got this, there's too many variables you don't control as an agency. I can't, hey, I did everything we're supposed to do. Okay. We have everything set. They had a manufacturing and supply chain issue. They could not ship it.
Yeah.
I'm out my percentage.
100%.
I'm out. I'm out. I'm done. And it's a roller coaster ride. And Paul, as you and I have had breakfasts in Seattle when you come visit me, I don't like roller coasters. And you know what? CFOs and finance and C-suite people, they don't like roller coasters. They like gondolas that go up. And if you're going to tell me it's going to go down, I've got a very soft, safe landing.
Yeah, no, 100%. I was actually bring that up. I remember doing what I thought was a marvelous job for a client, only for them to just run out of stock due to really poor supply chain disciplines, right? And you carry all the risk, right? Of course, they have the risk of lost sales, but you might still do quite a bit of work trying to cover all of that.
Yeah, the other key from agency owners, and this is the truth, and this when I started Karen Company in 2013, back in that day, monthly retainers weren't even a thing. Like nobody was doing that. It was all percentage of revenue. We didn't have ad right there, but it was all risk. And I said, listen, to a point, whether we sell 1,000 widgets or we sell 100 widgets, I still have to have the same overhead, the same costs to actually deliver that outcome. So I can't do it on 100% revenue. I have to have a monthly fee that can cover a little bit of my head count.
Yeah.
And my
I was actually going
to.
Yeah. Ali, Davey, thanks for your question, by the way. I'm just going to throw a real question in here because it really aligns with what I was going to ask next, which is, in my experience, when we used to do this, it used to take maybe, there's a lot of upfront work to be done, right? To get an account in a certain space, maybe you have to fix a whole bunch of listings, get inventory right before you can really start to make, good money, grow them, and actually for an account to be profitable. And, for us, that was typically around the 6-month mark, it can be longer depending on all that. So, how do you think about that from a pricing point of view? Obviously, one thing is to have long-term contracts, but as you said before, there's always a way out. The other way is, I think what Ali's asking about here is, how do you tackle the upfront work that agencies put in? If a client decides to move away from the partnership after 3 to 6 months,
Here's
she's also seen it. Or sorry,
Yeah,
go ahead.
yeah. No, go ahead. 100%, Ali, and I was going to talk about that. Setup fees, one-time setup fees. Here's the truth, okay, agency owners, you're gonna in the first 30 to 60 days, you're losing your ass. You're losing money on this thing. This is just how it is, because you're gonna put so much time, so much the onboarding, all of this stuff just is you're gonna over-index on effort, time, money, tech, all those things. So one way to alleviate that is to do a setup fee, a one-time setup fee, which vary greatly depending on the catalog situation, depending on the work. So put that into effect and get a one-time setup fee. That kind of hedges your bet. So in 3 months, if things don't work out for various reasons, then at least you've recovered a little bit of that. And the other thing is ad hoc. So in the monthly, you might have put up front the setup fee, but also say, listen, we're going to create content, creative. We got a big structure. We're going to do your forecasting, modeling, whatever it is. And guess what? Here's the one-time project fee that we're going to put up against that to kind of cover. Does that answer the question?
It does to me. Maybe Ali, if there's further questions, feel free to put them in the chat there.
My friend Phil Adempe is in. Phil Adempe.
Right. Well, before we get to him, I just want to ask one follow-up question there, which is, you sort of got onto it, but managing client expectations, right? The client agrees to pay X. There's a certain amount of services that are going to be provided for X. There's always this wonderful thing called scope creep, and maybe the agency can just do me a favor, or maybe they're not so busy, and all that sort of stuff. And that can be a very slippery slope and lead to a very unprofitable account very quickly. Managing expectations right from the start. What is best practice according to you, Scott?
You do your best to set up expectations. And so this is a major disconnect, because it depends on who you're talking to. This is why I always say agency, the pricing is so brutal, because you're talking to a sales and marketing or an agency owner that is setting up and going to their teams and creating the price that they're going to charge. Then they get into execution. The production team, the account management team, the brand manager goes in, and then you're talking to a different person. The person of contact in the client meeting was there with a decision maker, for example, but the decision maker who said yes and signed the agreement or contract isn't in the day-to-day and doesn't understand. Once you get in, it's like remodeling a house. I pull one wall back and I'm like, oh my God, I got to rewire this entire thing. That wasn't built in the pricing, because during the sales process, it's dating. They're selling you, you're selling them, everybody's happy. You put together this pricing structure that everyone seems great. Then all of a sudden you get into it and you're like, oh my Lord, the account manager, the ad team, the content team, the copier, everyone's like, this is a disaster. We're going to have to actually put in way more hours. We didn't get a setup fee. And so again, in that 30, 60 days, no one's happy because you've lost a ton of money. The expectation is on the sales and marketing side, and you have to be clear and try to do as best you can, because you won't know everything. All the scraping tools, everything else is never going to tell you. Everyone thinks you can go and grow a business exponentially. And that's just not where we are on Amazon. There's outliers, there's disclaimers, there's unicorns. I get it. But the truth is the expectations. And sales, between the sales process and the actual account management onboarding, it depends who your point of contact is, depends who you're talking to, decision makers. That's where price problems come into problems. Because the agency's like, I just spent so many hours and so many times, and we had to put all these teams on it. And the agency owner's like, wait a minute, this price, did we not charge them enough? Well, no, the sales process didn't uncover the 17,000 hours of work we had to do to get this thing up and running, to get where we're going, to hit even close to our incentive. So it's a constant, the account, whoever's talking every day has to make sure they level set this non-stop. Messaging is key here. Again, we did a little account management one last time. This is on the, unfortunately, this is on the brand owner, the account owner.
Yeah, no, it's managing expectations. And your point about just doing that proper discovery as part of the sales process, really trying to understand what's underneath the rug, right?
100%. There's amnesia here. This is the other thing that is just experience. And I think everybody in the here, my buddy Phil knows this. From the sales and marketing, depending if you have a different team, depending who it is, right? they have emails, you have all this stuff, you have all documentation, slide decks, whatever. Then they get into the actual meat of the business. And for some reason, the client is like, has amnesia, doesn't remember any of the emails, any of the clients, and comes into the pouring and says, hey, I'm paying for this. I'm paying for this. And the account manager's like, that's ad hoc. That's this. I've told you're getting these set of services. Boom, you have instant conflict, you have expectation problems, and you probably don't have a happy customer.
Yeah. Which we might as well get to Phil's question now then, actually. Oh, hang on, I'll get back to you in a sec, Ellie. So Phil's initial is the question he's asked, and thanks for your question, Phil. Really appreciate it. Makes this stuff a lot more interactive. I'm going to address it to you, Scott. What is the best way to protect agency income from clients who may be meeting or exceeding agreed upon KPIs, but may fall short of their commitments, right? So you might be smashing on sales, but maybe they're not giving you the inventory you need. So you could have had a much bigger number, and they're starting to have moving targets for what satisfactory performance really looks like.
This is what I call friendly reminders. Your question is great, Phil. It's good to see you. I love you. The point here is that it's friendly reminders and who is involved in getting the account versus who's involved running the account. That's really the difference. And the KPIs, you have to up front make sure we're all on the same page. And that's where the friendly reminders of, hey, listen, you said margin was the most important to you. Yeah, but your ad spend, you didn't get me the sales. You didn't get me the high sales. Hey, friendly reminder, when we all got in the room together and we decided what our big goal was, it was margin. And that's what we've managed it to. That's what we're doing it to. That's what we're running. If that's changing, then guess what? We need to go relook at the paperwork, and we need to have different incentives and different KPIs because we're not on the same page. So this is a constant. This is why an account manager, brand managers, we've talked about, Paul, before, this job is so hard because you're the salesperson, you're the ops person, you're the marketing person, you're everything. And it's just really difficult to find somebody who can do all those and then develop that trust and relationship to call the client out and say, hey, whoa, no. You're not doing, we're not doing that. You can't judge me on my ROAS one day and say I'm not doing it and versus the profit margin or sales on the other day. Like, we're not doing that. And that's a very difficult conversation. I've just gotten really good at it because I've done it 100 times.
It's well, this is where the friendly, I mean, when you say friendly reminders, I'm assuming there's the word proactive embedded in there, right? Constantly in their ear, reminding them before they ask you, right? You don't want to be on the back foot on this stuff. So 100%. Before we close out, I just want to go back to Ali's question. She did have a follow-up question, which I think Phil has already shed some light on, but I'm just going to pop it up here for the benefit of this recording as well and our audience there. Back to upfront payments, right, and doing that sort of fee upfront. She's just asking a little bit of clarification around: is that a one-time fee based on Amazon revenue? Does it have to be profitable for both the agency and brand? What are your thoughts there?
So that has not, in my opinion, in my experience, has nothing to do with their Amazon revenue. It's amount of, what do you think? You have to make your best educated guess. What is my internal cost to meet that deliverable up front? And so the charge has to be applicable or referable to be fair to that. So is it a $5,000 one-time setup fee because I've already established in my research and the sales team and marketing, I'm going to have to go redo catalog work. I'm going to have to get several teams involved. We're going to have to put this much of resources on it. And at $5,000, are we going to make 100% margin there or 50 margin? Probably not, but it's going to offset because you unfortunately have to have risk scenarios all the time. If we lose this client in 3 months, how bad is it going to be? The $5,000 or the one-time setup fee can mitigate those risks a little bit. It's still going to suck. I'm just, Ali, it's just still going to be a bummer no matter what.
Yeah.
This is why
Absolutely.
Whether you do great work or you don't do very good work and you're charging money, it's frustrating because you could do the greatest work in the world and still get canned. Or you could not do a great job and stay on for 5 years. It completely depends on the situation and who's the decision maker and who's running it.
Yeah, 100%. Many examples when back in the day, particularly a change of agency personnel is probably the worst scenario, because it's all down to relationships as well, right? And how you collaborate, 100%. So, Scott, as we close out, a final question here, and I think it's the time, sitting in an event here at Amazon's again, making lots of announcements around AI and productivity improvements and more bells and whistles, which, on one hand, it's like Amazon's starting to do a lot of the agency work. On the other hand, they're driving more complexity into their operating models, right? Which sort of, requires more agency work, So what do you think? I mean, it's a much broader conversation and probably one for a dedicated episode, but sort of just zooming into the pricing topic, right? What do you see if you were, crystal ball, 2026, 27, where do you see Amazon agency pricing heading? Models and levels, and what would be your
Uh,
take?
yeah, I think so. The behind the scenes, these ad tech platforms is really driving this percentage of revenue. I can see percentage of revenue actually not is kind of almost going away, is what I see. I think the flat fee model for a size of business and appropriate resources to put to that business from the expertise, driving that medium, that balancing act, excuse me, of not being too much where they can hire internal versus expertise. I think what you're going to see over time is the ad tech competition is going to bring out where we're going to see dissolving these percentage of revenue on ad spend. That also is going to allow agencies to go back to more flat fee or very low rev share. The platform is maturing. That's also a part of this. There's a confluence of AI and the services. I think the services that agencies perform today is going to change dramatically in the next year to 18 months. And I think ad tech is about to hear some, and the media buying and all those things, there's some disruption there. And Amazon on Unboxed, at one point, they're making it easier to execute. And at the same time, they're making it way more complex with targeting and segmentation and all the other things from the ad on the PPC and then DSP and all these other things. So you're going to need more expertise. I just think we're moving toward, and this could be my bias, Paul, because I can't stand percentage of revenue. I think it's the wrong incentive. It's just not a great win-win for all parties. And so I don't like it. It's just, you know what? How much is it going to be to do the work and do the best work you can? Tell me what that is and let's move on. But I do think we're moving towards that more and more in the Amazon space.
Let's. I hope so too, because I fully agree with you that getting rid of that percentage does give agencies a lot more freedom on how they price going forward, which should lead to much better outcomes. So, Scott, we need to wrap it up here. But thank you so much for your valuable contributions, and as always, your deep passion about the subjects we're talking about, including pricing. Just for our audience, when Scott and I were having breakfast a couple of months ago, and we spoke about this as a potential topic, it didn't take me long to convince him to do it. He bit at the topic literally in a few seconds. As you can see, he's very passionate about it. So, Scott, thank you so much. I know you're a busy guy, so I appreciate you jumping on and sharing your knowledge, warts and all, and really giving it to us the way the world really operates in this space. So, thank you so much, and I look forward to doing another episode.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me back, Paul.
So that was a great discussion with Scott on one of the most important and challenging decisions that agency face, right? How do I really price my services? We spoke about a lot, right? Retainers, revenue share, productized models, and the trade-offs that come with each of those approaches. So if you join us live, especially, Phil and Ellie, thank you so much for joining us, your questions, your insights. And for those of you that are catching this recording afterwards, don't forget to register for future episodes so you can take part in our live Q&A. That is a wrap from me here in Nashville. See you next time, and take care.